with the knowledge to make informed investment decisions. Hello and welcome to Market Insight, your trusted source for understanding the complexities of the commodity and the currency market. Each day we delve into the trends, as they unfold in the commodity market space as well as the currency market. We also uncover emerging trends and, basically to help you make sense of investment decisions you might want to make. All right, I'm your host, Adesua Iramosele, and I'm being joined by the MD and CEO of Najem Business Solution, Mr. Ben, and he is going to be here with us for a bit, to discuss this topic. Here says Mr. Ben Nnamdi Okorie, and he would be having this conversation with us. So very quickly, let's give you some insight into what this topic is going to be about. But before we do that, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we would give you what we have for today. Stay with us.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Souk News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Souk News.
So I'm happy that Souk TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Souk News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for. And I think Souk News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Souk News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Zouk News.
Keep watching Souk News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Souk News.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Market Insight, and if you are looking for a place to showcase your products and services, this is the place you could do that. We would, ensure that you reach a larger audience. Welcome again to Market Insight. Now, yesterday we analyzed the report that stated that Nigeria ranked second globally, amongst countries with the lowest cost of living. That's according to Numbio's cost of living ranking 2024. Now today we would be addressing this new report, that states that Nigeria's broad money supply increased to 78.74 trillion naira as at December 2023, which is the highest ever recorded in the country. Now this is an increase of 26.58 trillion naira, or, you might want to say 51% increase, year on year when compared to 52.16 trillion naira recorded in 2022. Now, this is according to the latest data from the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, as contained in its money and credit statistics. Now, the broad money supply, which is also referred to as M3, is used to measure liquidity in the economy and has been on an upward trajectory. in recent years, and of course at a very rapid pace. It comprises net foreign assets and net domestic assets. Now, in analyzing the Nigeria economic landscape, a critical lens must be cast upon the money supply. Now, prominent among these are the escalating inflation rates, mounting pressures on the Naira's exchange value, and a downturn in the interest rate. Now we have with us, like I said earlier, our guest, and of course we would be talking about this. Now to you, Ben, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, it's good to always have you here in the show. What do you make of this report? I mean, just yesterday we were being told that Nigeria ranks one of the lowest when it comes to the cost of living, you know, and now this is a different report. What are your thoughts about it?
When they say Nigeria ranks lowest in the cost of living, I don't quite agree with that report. Because recently the CBN governor came out to say that Naira is undervalued. And now if you weight the cost of buying a tin of pig milk, for example, in the United States, and compare that with the Naira equivalents and our exchange rate, you notice that Naira actually is undervalued. And when we say cost of living, what exactly is cost of living? What it costs me and you to buy the basic things we need to survive as individuals. So Nigeria at all, the cost of living is not cheap in Nigeria in today's time. Maybe if you are considering pre-devaluation of the pre-unification of the exchange rate, yes, we can say that the cost of living in Nigeria is relatively cheap. So if this report is as at before June 2023, when government unified, I would have agreed with you 100%. But the reality today is that Naira is overvalued, is undervalued, and that means our cost of living is not cheap as a nation. So I don't quite agree with that report, unless it's stating before June. Again, to speak to the topic for today, supply, yeah, for broad money supply for today, I want to just explain it to our viewers what broad money and narrow money is. And when we talk about narrow money, what we just mean is the money in circulation. So that money that the trader close to you is giving you as change, the money you are giving to the bus conductor, that's what CBN refers to as narrow money, in addition to the balances sitting in the current account of banks, of commercial banks and other financial institutions. So if you have any money sitting in a current account, which the liquidity is very close, so we measure it in terms of its nearness to liquidity. Because if you have a current account, it is presumed you don't need to inform the bank before drawing on your funds, and there are no penalties for drawing on your funds. Whereas when we talk about broad money supply, M3, what we typically is narrow money, which is money in circulation and current accounts, in addition to the money you have in both in term and fixed deposit accounts. It also refers to your domiciliary account balances and your net asset balance, offshore balances across the country. So those ones that are a little bit further to liquidity are what we call broad money supply. Now, why do CBN take time to measure both narrow money and broad money supply? That is the question you and I should be asking. How does it concern me as an individual living in the Nigerian economy? The truth is that the amount of money in supply is a precursor to what inflation is. So if you look at how much money you have, let me explain it to you. When they pay you salary, if you notice, you have a higher tendency to spend money, right? So when we have more money in supply in the economy, there is tendency that people have, will do what? Purchase more goods and services. And because there is too much money chasing a limited amount of goods, it gives rise to what? Higher inflation. So CBN measures it as an indicator to inflationary pressure. Thank you.
All right. Now, what would be the significance of this increase? I mean, saying Nigeria's broad money supply increased by 78.74 million naira. That's on a year-on-year basis, like, from December. Now, What are the primary drivers behind this record-breaking rise in the Nigerian broad money supply, basically?
Okay, so having explained the broad money and the narrow money, we now have a fair understanding what the two terms means. And the primary is just one driver, as long as I'm concerned, that is driving this increase in broad money supply. It means that the cost of living in Nigeria has risen, and that is why I didn't agree with the former statement. So let me paint the picture, so that we can relate with it. Before you had an asset, right? Maybe you had a property, a land, a car, but because your daily needs have increased, so the money you normally used to go to the market to buy a tin of tomato, a basket of pepper and all that have increased. You need to liquidate some of those your assets. That means you need to sell them, right? So that phone, the second phone you are not using, you go to Computer Village, you sell it. So that means you've converted an illiquid asset to a more liquid asset, giving rise to the money in supply. Some of us did have money in our domiciliary accounts, in our fixed deposit accounts, and we were moving the money to a more current account, or we are withdrawing that money to be able to pay our house rent, to be able to pay our children's school fees. That means we are converting the money we had in broad money to even narrow money supply. So what you see is that people are liquidating their investments, their assets, to be able to meet up with the current economic reality. And that is the primary driver behind the rise in the money supply. And that is also a reflection of the inflation we see happening in the economy. 2 years ago, Nigeria was running an average inflation of 17%. Last figure for inflation is 28.92%. So you see that the cost of things have gone up. So what that means for you is, and that is the weighted average inflation. If you look at the food inflation, which concerns the average Nigeria the most, right, is because it's somebody who has catered for their basic needs that will look at what luxury products. So is the average food inflation that should be our major concern as Nigerians. So if you look at what the average food inflation is, it's currently hovering at around 35%. What it means is that on the average, if you used to buy a tin of tomato 100 naira a year ago, you'll be buying it 135 naira today. But the reality in the market, again, this is a weighted average. The reality in the market is that prices of goods have more than doubled. So what that means is that most people's income are fixed, especially for fixed salary income earners. And for business people, for those that operate in an inelastic market, they are not able to transfer the costs to their final consumer. So their margin is thinned out. So we see that relatively we have fixed income, both traders and fixed salary earners, but our costs of living has gone up. So making it a mismatch, or for us to do what? Liquidate some of the assets or investments we have to support our current daily spending, which is the narrow and broad money in circulation. So it has risen while our assets have depleted.
Indeed, you've made us understand the whole concept. Now, when people liquidate their money, what is the implication of all of that on the Nigerian economy?
So I will summarize it with a concept I call short-termism. And that simply means people are looking at today, right? People are looking at today, they're not looking at tomorrow. Why do people build houses? For renting, right? To earn rental income. But when I sell that house for rental income and I'm using that money to feed, that means I'm not developing my area, I'm not developing my country. I don't have money to put in assets that will build up the Nigerian basis. So you see that by the time people begin to spend on recurrent expenditure, there is no more money for them to do their individual capital expenditure. So you see a deteriorating state in terms of assets. So people that have houses due to deteriorate, people who have money for elaborate education systems. So naturally, people that would have sent their children abroad to school, or people that would have sent their children for master's, PhD program, they won't afford that kind of life. They will not have to step down, which means the quality of graduates that we produce will also do what? Reduce. Again, people will not have money to invest in things like road infrastructure. Like if you notice what is happening in the urban area, most people have taken it upon themselves to provide most of these amenities that governments will naturally provide for them. Things like road, things like water, electricity, and all that. But because they don't have the luxury of income to invest in those assets, those things will suffer, right? And if you watch most developing economies, people that actually develop the economy, it's not just the government. The government's primary responsibility is to create an enabling environment. It is the private sector, individuals like you and I, investors like you and I, that actually develop the economy. But when the disposable income of these investors does not allow them to invest in those developmental activities, the economy in general suffers.
Indeed, this is quite interesting. Now, given the whole this whole trajectory, what is the CBN, supposed to do in this case?
So I hear a lot of people mention the CBN, the CBN, the CBN. Government has two major tools of controlling economic activities. The first is the fiscal powers that are vested in the presidency, and the second is the monetary activities of the CBN. But because of the inefficiencies that are existent in our fiscal sector as a country, we've overlabored the central bank, who is supposed to be independent and oversee the monetary activities of the country. And that have seen the CBN venture outside the space that they are supposed to perform in order to cushion the effect on the economy. And let me explain what I mean. I've spoken a lot of economic jargons. I want to break it down. So today, government primarily controls the economy through things like tariffs, duties, and taxes. The CBN controls the economy primarily through things like the money supply, the exchange rates, and the interest rates. Now, these are three different tools. But what has happened within the tax space in Nigeria? The tax space in Nigeria has been cannibalized at different levels. So when you walk out to the streets, who collects taxes from box 6? The arbitrers, who doesn't have an accountable system. So there is an income leakage at that space. Today, who collect taxes in the rural areas is almost non-existent. So all those housing permits and taxes that we should collect in the rural are non-existent. So you see that the economy is bleeding in those spaces. It is only the few formal sectors and the few urban organized areas that government have actually managed to collect taxes from. And the economy cannot survive without the other. So monetary policy cannot survive with the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy cannot survive with the monetary policy. But because fiscal policy is suffering, monetary policy is also suffering. So we are not collecting enough taxes as a country. So government needs to increase the tax base, right? And we are not even collecting as much taxes as we're supposed to collect as a country. Again, we have porous borders that are allowing goods to do what? Seep into the country without proper what? Duty. So I'll give you the implication in today's society. You, as a trader that is buying tomatoes from a nominated distributor that is paying custom duty, cannot compete with that your next door neighbor that has tomato being brought in at the back of their boots through Cotonou border. What that means is that that person can't sell their tin tomato for 150 naira, whereas you cannot buy your own tin tomato for 180 naira. So no matter what monetary policy the CBN is putting in place, because that lapse is existing at the physical end, it becomes what? Counterproductive. Now, if you look at the recent announcement by government that they want to denominate collections from crude oil proceeds in the CBN. Again, is CBN venturing outside their primary responsibility. It also has its own implication. The implication being that the CBN will not have a lot to be doing on their arms, that they won't concentrate on their primary activity, which is actually what? To do what? Control the lending system and the deposit system in the country, which is commercial and other banking institutions. So by the time they begin to venture into activities that naturally the physical systems that government has put in place is supposed to tackle, it creates a vacuum in the monetary space.
Indeed, it does create a vacuum in the monetary space. Now, what sectors do you really consider would be very, much affected by this increase?
So when we say the increase in money supply, it will affect every sector. It affects every sector, but in different proportions. So if you see those people that are dealing more with cash, rudimentary transaction, right, it means that they have more money. So let me explain again for our viewers to be able to follow me. Prior to the cash crunch in the Q1 2023, we noticed that when you enter a bus, or what we popularly call Danfo or Korope in Lagos, and you don't have change to give your conductor, or the bus driver will be shouting, "Hold your change, oh, hold your change, oh." But today, that is no longer existing. That is the effect of increased money supply in the economy. So it means that there is abundance of naira in circulation as at today, that you can be able to do what? Collect your change and pay. But the reverse affects those with structured businesses that are borrowing money from the commercial bank, because it is that fixed deposit, it is that savings deposit you have with banks that they consolidate and lend to a Dangote Cement, for example, to increase their economic activities. So what it means is that as you are transferring more money outside the banking system or into the current account, what you have is that the organized sector has less deposit to access for their activities. And when there is less deposit to access, naturally, the law of demand and supply, prices that they can access that's the lending rate the bank will give them that deposit at, will slightly increase.
Wow, and that's supposed to be a good thing, having much money in circulation. Anyway, now this brings me to my next question. Can we sustain this currently, the way we are now in our Nigerian economy? Can this be sustained, and how long?
Personally, I'm not an advocate of too much money in circulation, and I will tell you why. When there are too much money in circulation, it creates room for inflation. That inflation has a cyclical effect that affects you and I. What that means is that the price I'll buy tomato will keep going up. Because if the organized sector doesn't have their cost of input increases, it comes back to the person at the road, because they will ultimately buy their goods from the organized sector, right? And the cost of money in circulation, it is very expensive to print money. I hope we are aware. And that printing of money comes from the taxes that you and I pay. So for CBN to be able to maintain that level of money in supply, it requires them to constantly print and replace defaced currencies. So it's expensive to keep a high volume of money in circulation. And let's not forget that there also has the fraud aspect, right? When you keep too much money in circulation, especially too much money outside the commercial banks, what it does is that it allows for fraudsters to perpetrate fraud. It makes it ineffective for people like the EFCC and ICPC to track transactions. So let me give you an example. If someone has committed a fraud and moved the money from one bank to another, you can easily trace that fund. But once that person withdraws that money in cash, which is money in circulation, it becomes difficult for you to trace the fund. So having too much money in circulation, in fact, we should be preaching more of a cashless society than having too much money in circulation, in my own opinion.
Yeah, and well, that is a very valid point. But what measures can be taken actually to ensure that we have stability, in our financial environment here in Nigeria?
Thank you, Adesuwa. That question is a broad question that should take about 2 days retreats and a whole maybe 500-page term sheet. The financial stability in Nigeria comes in different angles. And why people might think that I will tackle it from the obvious angles, I will come from things around the physical environment. So the first thing Nigeria needs to do to get the financial stability is to tackle security and corruption. Now, my viewers will wonder, how does that relate to financial stability? But the truth is that the bedrock of the Nigerian economy, right, is two things: crude and agriculture. Today, prices of food have skyrocketed primarily because of insecurity in the northern part of the country that have increased the commodities that we buy, and that is distorting the financial space. Again, corruption at different levels are distorting the financial space. So you need to tackle those two things first to gain some form of physical stability before we can talk of financial stability. Because no matter the monetary policy or financial policy that the government comes out with, until we're able to tackle the physical stabilities, they will be counterproductive. And I will give you an example. With all honest intention, government announced unification of exchange rates middle June 2023. Have we seen that actualized? The answer is no. So as much as government has tried to meet that rate 2 times, what we've seen is that the gap that existed in the parallel market has continued to exist. So before the unification, we are buying official exchange rate at 465, parallel market at 770. Government unified in June, 2 of them met at 770. In less than a month, we saw the gap again widen from 770 official, black market 900. Today, black market is going for as high as 1,000 naira, 1,475 naira, whereas the official exchange rates 3 weeks ago was still at about 800, 900 naira. Government has done what? Keeping to its promise, is trying to meet the black market rates at 1,400. But what you will see is, again, the state actors and corruption will allow the gap to widen. So until you fix physical stabilities, things around corruption, things around security, things around infrastructure, things around education, things around healthcare, you can't be able to gain financial stability. And that's the truth. Because today, what are the things that are driving our foreign exchange instability? So you look at the amount of people leaving the country, drawing on our foreign exchange. You look at our inability to produce PMS from our own crude. Today, what is the major component of our importation as a country? 80% of our imports as a country is motor spirits and gas oil. That is what we colloquially call fuel and diesel or AGO. It accounts for more than 80% of our imports. And we have crude oil, but we can't refine them. And we have 4 refineries. So you see that the problem is for financial. So how do we expect to gain financial stability when we need to always recourse outside to get something we can naturally produce in our country? So it's until we're able to tackle the physical stabilities, there is no policy that will tackle financial stabilities. If we like, let us say A, B, C, D, because the physical actors will always act against it, because the institutions are not there to tackle the physical inadequacies. So today, you say you want to tackle the fraud within, or whatever we want to call it, within the custom space. Good and well, is yielding the desired result. But give it another 2 or 3 months, Nigerians will fashion a way to do what? Set it back to the era where they are making what? Money from it. So the problem is not in you coming up with a policy to make getting your passports better. The problem is, the root cause is to tackle the corruption menace.
Indeed. You spoke about refineries. I mean, Dangote refinery to the rescue, right? Okay, so now let's move ahead. What is the implication of this on the financial institutions we have here in Nigeria? Is this an opportunity for them, to leverage the situation and promote access to financial services, or what's your take?
So for financial institution, it now becomes a proportion of what narrow money is within the broad money. What the financial institutions control are money in current accounts, deposit accounts, time or term deposit accounts, and domiciliary accounts. Now, the 5th component of money in circulation is the money in your hand, in my hand. So when I open the purse, your purse, now the money there, or when I open my wallet, the money there. Those are the components of broad money. And of course, our offshore accounts. Now, what commercial banks control are the first 4 that I've mentioned. So now, they are opportunity for commercial banks now speaks to the proportion of what each of these components is in the broad money supply. So if we have a greater portion of it in the commercial banks, it means that your deposit is the raw materials that commercial banks use in producing their own goods, which is what we call financial intermediation. So commercial banks, what they do is they collect money from you and I, they aggregate it, and they lend it to an individual. They pay you an interest for the money they've collected to you, and they collect an interest from the person they've lent the money to. So the difference, or what we call the spread, is what they now make as interest income. So is it beneficial to commercial banks? The answer is yes. If a chunk of that money finds its way back into the commercial banking system, that means they have more money to lend to the real sectors, and they can make more money from it. And when commercial banks being an engine to growth in the economy, it means that businesses will have access to more money. But on the flip side, if more of that money is outside there in circulation, not within the commercial bank, then it's not beneficial to them, because you and I cannot aggregate that money together to lend it to one person.
Indeed, this is also interesting. Now, how can CBN ensure transparency when it comes to communication, in the implication of the significant increase in money supply, to stakeholders and the public? How can they make the public understand all of this?
So the Central Bank of Nigeria has done a lot of things in the past, but they have this arm that is in charge of engagement. Engagement in the sense that people need to be enlightened why they need to do certain things or why they shouldn't do certain things. And the CBN also has a responsibility to also make sure that people are well rewarded for their finances, right? So in terms of what the CBN can do to be able to encourage or inform people about the different tools that are available to them, the CBN can come to Soak News, for example, and take out a program and enlighten the public on what the intention, the spirit behind the regulations that they are issuing is. And beyond just putting out their guidelines and circulars on their website for people to download, they can make deliberate effort to put it in corners of newspapers as well. So there are a lot of things the CBN, can do to put the information out there. But beyond the CBN, the financial ecosystem has a lot to do in terms of enlightening people as well. Today, the commercial banks have one of the highest retail footprints in the whole of the Nigerian business ecosystem or value chain. Those retail footprints should be used as outlets to reach out to the rural people, for them to be able to understand some of these big economic jargons that the CBN uses. So the old mama in the village will not know what your narrow money supply is or your broad money supply is. But when you explain to mama that when you bring your 1,000 naira, instead of putting it and tying it at the head of your wrapper, when you bring it into the banking system, we can be able to use it to bring down the cost of that tin tomato you're buying, because we can now lend to the final end users at a lower rate, and that input cost translates to the output price that you are buying. By the time they begin to understand the importance of putting their money within the banking system, then it will be beneficial to both the economy and the old mama on the street.
Indeed, indeed. Now let's look at regional cooperation, right? How can Nigeria collaborate with other African nations, by way of trade, basically, to ensure that the financial ecosystem just keeps moving smoothly, basically?
Okay, when we talk of regional cooperation and interregional trade, that's why we established the ECOWAS, the African Union, and things like that. For our West African region, we have ECOWAS, right? But recently, we see about 3 countries pull out from the ECOWAS arrangements, primarily because of the queue. I don't want to talk much about that because of the sensitivity to security. But in terms of no country can operate on a self-sufficient level. Every country needs what we call trade to survive, primarily because of what we call economies of scale. if you look at the principle of comparative advantage, it states that countries should focus on producing things where they have comparative advantage over other countries. That way they bring down the overall cost to the company to the barest minimum. Now let me explain what that means. If Nigeria has comparative advantage in producing premium motor spirits, they should focus on that and leave things around maybe AGU and all that. So the question of interregional trade comes into play, first of all, with countries in the Western region identifying what they have comparative advantage in its production. Now the question whether Nigeria can produce PMS of fuel, whether we have comparative advantage in producing PMS, is another topic entirely that we can debate and talk about for a whole day. But if you look at the cooperation within the region, the first thing that each country needs to do is to identify which products can I make cheaper than my neighbor. That is one. Then two, the talk of an inter-Africa currency is long overdue. The African region is still, for lack of better word, linked to their colonized masters or colonial masters, sorry. Yeah, reason being that we still use dollars. So if you want to buy something from Ghana today, that is just 2 hours drive from you here in Lagos or somewhere, you need to convert your money first to dollars before you convert it to Ghanaian cedis for you to be able to buy something in Ghana. That is mental slavery. We should have the African currency to fast track what? An interregional cooperation. Again, we should increase activities around free trade areas across Africa. Today, if you want to travel from one European country to another European country, you just need your Shanghai visa, and you can move from one country to another. But if you want to go from Nigeria to another African countries, very few accept the ECOWAS passports. You have to still get either some form of visa on arrival or visa. So those kind of restrictions should be relaxed to encourage interregional cooperation. So we need to first of all identify where we have competitive advantage or comparative advantage. We need to identify or promote a single interregional currency to be able to trade amongst ourselves without recourse to the greenback. Then we need to fix our trade relations. So increase trade, traveling and visa restrictions, and create more free trade zones.
Interested. Now, what can the African Development Bank, do to basically harmonize policies to ensure that we promote, a whole lot of economic integration within the African continent?
So the African Development Bank was established with the primary purpose of developing the African nations. So they're supposed to provide some form of financing for governments to improve their infrastructural capacities. But the problem we've seen in recent time in developing countries has gone beyond the problem of infrastructural inadequacies and has gone to the problem of bailouts. So you see the African Development Bank spend more of their resources bailing out African government than investing actually in infrastructural development. Last 2 years, we saw the way Ghana Eurobond tanked, across the continent. Not just African Development Bank, even IMF have to come for bailouts for the Ghanaian economy. This year, we've seen how the Nigerian exchange rate has tanked. We've seen the Afrism, we've seen IMF all coming to the rescue of defending the Naira, to no avail. So the role the AFD needs to play is the role that it was originally created for, which is to support infrastructural development. Because if those infrastructures are not there and we are playing dress up, at the first light of wind, will also be very, very exposed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben. Now, what are the long-term visions for our economy now in Nigeria, talking about the financial ecosystem and our monetary policies. You know, what key principles, you know, should guide future decisions, basically?
So you have asked two questions. One is a vision. The other one is the principles, or what I would prefer to call systems. Vision comes from a leader. The vision of the Nigerian financial system should come from the people at the helm of the affairs. I would like to see, now this is what I would like to see for vision, in a financial system where our Naira is strong. Growing up, I used to visit neighboring countries like Benin Republic. And when I went to Benin Republic, with as low as 200 Naira, I could buy 1,000 cefas. Today, 1,000 cefas cannot buy 200, 1,000 Naira cannot buy 200 cefas. So the vision is to see where the Naira is what? Back strong. Strong against its peers. And the strength of the Naira comes from our ability to produce value as a country, our ability to produce comparative goods that are competitive in the international market. That is the vision I will see for Nigeria. If this is my era, I view cefas. If you ask my dad, in their era, 1 Naira was stronger than $1. Today, 1,000 Naira cannot buy $1 for you. In the 70s, a Naira can comfortably buy $1 plus. But today, even in today's black market, 1,490 Naira cannot buy $1 for you. So I want to go back to that era where Naira is strong. That is the vision. In terms of the principles and things we need to put in place to be able to achieve that vision or actualize that vision, first, we can't put all the blame on government. It boils down to every one of us, those of you watching us, even those of us in the studio. If you examine yourself, how many things that you are putting on are actually made in Nigeria? So you are part of the problem why the exchange rate is falling. If you look at your clothes, imported fabrics, look at the glasses, your earrings, your shoes, your shirts, your polo, everything is imported. How do you expect your currency to be strong when you are busy patronizing another country's goods and services? We've demeaned our own products. So if somebody wears a traditional attire like myself now, you might look down on the person. In fact, we've institutionalized inflation, imported inflation. So if you want to go for an interview and you dress the way I am, you've lost it automatically. You need to wear a suit and tie. Who produces suit and tie? China. And that is why you look at the majority of our imports as a country. We import over 25% of the total things we use in Nigeria from China, but we don't even export up to 1% to China. So those are the principles we need to begin to change. We need to think Nigeria first. So you look at, go out to your street and just count the number of cars that are passing. How many of them are made in Nigeria? But we have people assembling cars in Nigeria, but we don't use them. In fact, the economy has, you know, given that pedestrian to people that drive those American finished cars as. So those principles need to change. We need to think Nigeria. In those days, when we are saying $1 was 1 Naira, our parents prioritized using Naira. Products. But those are no longer the case today. The case today is that if you want milk, you want to buy the foreign brand for your children. So those principles need to do what? Change. It needs to change, because if we don't get that right, no matter how the grammar we speak, no matter how the fine blueprints we write, the fundamental problem is still that all of us are still consuming imported products. So the vision for financial stability starts with you and I. It also starts with government.
Indeed. Thank you very much for all of that. Now, Ben, I just want you to give us your final thoughts on this topic. Then you could also add something to it. Talking about investment, do you think this would positively impact on investments of other nations, foreign investments into Nigeria?
Okay, so I'll answer the question first. On foreign investment, if you notice, since the government took over, our foreign direct investment has been reducing. In fact, our foreign capital inflow has been, our net foreign capital inflow has been negative on consistent quarter on quarter for the last 3 quarters. The reason being that investors are losing confidence in our system, primarily because we can't repatriate back the funds of those that have invested. So in investments, government needs to do all it can to regain that confidence of investors, right? So government needs to put everything it needs to put in place to make sure that investors' confidence is built back, both foreign and domestic. So as a domestic investor, you are not sure of the stability of Naira. And I'll give you a typical example. As a domestic investor, you go out there, you buy a product. Say you import this pomade to sell. You buy it, you are owing your foreign supplier $10,000 for argument's sake. By the time you bring in that product, dollar is 1,400 naira. You cost your product at 1,400 naira. Now, you finish selling at 1,400 naira, say a month later or 2 weeks later. The same $10,000 you're owing your foreign supplier is now costed at 1,700. So the business automatically becomes a loss to you. And that's why you see companies pack up and leave.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense for you to do all those economic activities and the bottom line is not seeing it, right? So in terms of foreign exchange stability, needs to be gotten right. Then for foreign investors, you do your business, face this foreign challenge, the stability challenge, but you're not even able to repatriate your funds back to pay dividend or for some form of royalties to your investor. So that becomes the challenge. So in terms of my final thoughts, and the money in circulation is good if it's in the hands of the commercial bank so that they can lend it to the organized sector to produce goods at a cheaper rate for you and I.
Thank you very much, Ben. It's always a pleasure to have you with us in the studio on Market Insight. Yes, that has been Ben Nnamdi Okorie, the MD and CEO of Najem Business Solutions. We'll be going on a break now, and when we return, we'll continue with the currency market. Stay with us.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Sook News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Sook News.
So I'm happy that Sook TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Sook News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for. And I think Sook News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Sook News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Zook News.
Keep watching Sook News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Sook News.
Many thanks for joining us. You're still watching Market Insight, and now we're going straight to the currency market. We just do that briefly because we really need to call it a day on the show. Okay, on the parallel market, we have the USD, the US dollar, buying at 1,460 naira and selling at 1,472 naira, while the pounds is buying at 1,845 naira and selling at 1,865 naira. The euros, on the other hand, is buying at 1,550 and selling at 1,570 naira. And currently today at the official market, yes, the USD is was opening rather at 1,113 naira and closing at 1,482 naira. You can see that the official rate is, is running after the parallel rates at a very close range now. But that's all we can take today on Market Insight. Adesua Eramosele. Join me again tomorrow for an even more insighting package. Have a lovely day.
I'm okay.
My name is Raymond Bola Brown.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souk News. Thank you very much.
I'm okay.
My name is Raymond Bola Brown.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souk News. Thank you very much.
Insight, yes, your one-stop show for anything business currently, and we talk about commodity market as well as the currency market, giving you the necessary information you need about your market space. I'm your host Adesoa Iramoseli, and today we'll be discussing something very, very key in our, in Nigeria today, talking about our Nigerian economy, and we'll be discussing the impact of the high cost of pharmaceutical drugs on the Nigerian economy, in fact, on the Nigerian people generally. This is one very serious issue because health is wealth. So if you are, if you are in a situation whereby you are sick and then you can't get affordable medication, there is a big problem. Now in Nigeria, falling sick, of course, is supposed to be normal, but currently seeking treatment is like a double blow, as regards to the financial implication. And this has become, increasingly unbearable for many Nigerians. The cost of basic pharmaceutical drugs, such as antibiotics, analgesics, anti-diabetics, and, key medications for chronic conditions, has doubled, tripled, and even quadrupled in some areas, leaving many patients struggling to access the health care they desperately need. Now, the alarming rise in drug prices, its impact on healthcare access and the urgent need for solution is critical to ensure that falling sick does not become, a financial death sentence. Among factors contributing to the increase in drug prices, are the rising production costs, delays in global supply chain, and local supply challenges, as well as the declining value of the naira. A silent rage of people grappling with undiagnosed and inadequately managed chronic diseases such as cancer, is also underway, as chemotherapy drugs have seen a 300% price increase in recent times, pushing them beyond the reach of patients. Now, this is just giving you almost like an understanding to the current situation in Nigeria, because we have so many people, having different medical challenges such as hypertension, diabetes, asthma, ulcer, cancer, and so many other medical issues, and they can't have access to affordable medicine because the prices are extremely high. Some are even over 300% higher than they used to be, and this is a very big problem. So we even have people, moving away from orthodox medicine and just focusing on traditional medicine. And this is indeed a challenge. And we have a guest who is joining us virtually. She is Dr. Temitokpe Ayedun, and he's a general practitioner based in the United Kingdom. Good morning to you, Dr. Temitokpe.
Good morning.
To Market Insight. I'm sure you listened to all I read out concerning the affordability of drugs currently, of pharmaceutical drugs currently in Nigeria. What is the implication of this challenge?
The implication of this challenge is that so many people will not be able to get their medication because they just cannot afford it. And that is a huge problem. The implication is that some people's chronic conditions can get worse, and some people can unfortunately even die from lack of their medication. So it is a huge challenge. It is a huge blow to the workforce in the country. It's a huge blow to the Nigerian population at large if we cannot get basic medication or even specialist medication at all. So that is the implication, and it's something that we really ought to be taking seriously at every point in time, because the health of our population is important. Every Nigerian is important.
Do you think this exorbitant prices of drugs would lead more people, to simply abandon orthodox medication and then, go the way of traditional medicine? And do you think that is advisable? And if more people go this way, what would be the overall implication of it?
I think, unfortunately, some people have already been pushed in that direction just because they cannot afford the cost of their medication. And they've decided that instead of taking nothing, they will take whatever is available. Now, the problem with taking some of these herbal medications is that some of them and most of them are not regulated. We don't know what is inside them. We don't know their quantities. We don't know their side effects. We don't know their pharmacodynamics and pharmacological properties. So that is the problem with, and unfortunately, some people even decide to combine both their orthodox and traditional medicine, which can even have more side effects on their system. So it is a problem, but some people have been pushed in that direction just because they cannot afford their medication.
Okay, so let's go back. What exactly would you highlight as the major cause of this, of this hike in price of pharmaceutical drugs?
Some of these things you have already highlighted in your introductory statement, which was brilliant, and that is that the price of the dollar, the forex, that is the instability in the system, the fact that small and medium enterprises are not encouraged in the country, the fact that this political terrain in the country is not really stable, that has impacted on the hike in the medication. Because when the price of importation of medication is so high, then getting to the end consumers, it will also be high as well. And so those are some of the factors that have implicated on these medications, because the producers are also getting it at a high cost. And generally, medications are expensive. They're expensive to process. Even to produce medications are expensive. So unless there is some form of regulation by the government, they would keep on increasing and increasing. In fact, I have family members that are managing concerns, and the prices have been so exorbitant. They have gone up exponentially, so many 100%. And it's just, when you see someone that is earning 100,000 and has to pay 70,000 for medication, how much is left when the minimum wage in the country is about 30,000? So it's a huge burden, and it's impacting on a lot of people, I must say.
Okay, now from your perspective, what would you say about international bodies coming to the aid of Nigerians? Because we have so many Nigerians complaining, especially those of them with very serious medical conditions like hypertension, cancer even, and these people are coming out to say we need help. What can the international bodies do to support Nigerians in this time?
Well, I think the international bodies, they can help, on a humanitarian basis, by providing these very specialized medications at a subsidized cost. And I know that, for instance, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation provide HIV medication at a subsidized rate to people. But more importantly, it's the fact that our government has to take responsibility for the health of their own people. The charity begins at home. It's so important that they start from home to take responsibility and then ask for help, not expecting handouts from other countries who are also grappling with their health challenges. We can learn from other countries how they have been managing their medication. For instance, Turkey is the country that has the lowest cost of medication. How did they do it? It's their government that is paying for their medication to get it subsidized. Countries like the US, even though they are one of the highest producer of medications and highest number of pharmaceuticals in the world, they still have high cost of medication. Countries like India have low amounts of cost of their medication because they are a world major producer of generic drugs. So there are things we can learn from other countries instead of expecting handouts. But of course, at the stage we are in, anything is welcome. And it will be really great if we could have some help from the outside, I must say.
All right. Thank God you mentioned the fact that other countries are able to overcome this kind of situations. You are a practitioner in the UK. What measures has the UK taken in time past to ensure that there is the affordability and availability of medication generally in UK, and how can Nigerians adopt that same policy or measure back here so we can also have the same, we can also enjoy the same benefits?
Okay. Now, in the UK, they have a centralized health system. The centralized health system helps with regulating the medication because from source, they make sure that they negotiate for the lowest prices possible. And to the end user, the medications do not cost very much. So each prescription goes for about £9.50. And that is for everybody, no matter how expensive the medication is. If you come with a prescription, it will go for £9.50. And they've even gone further to say that if you pay for 3 months, you can pay a lower amount. If you are paying in bulk, if you're paying for 12 months, you can pay a lower amount. These are incentives from the government. And as I said, they have a centralized health system, which we do not have in Nigeria at the time. I can give an example of Germany, for instance, where their health insurance gets subsidies from the pharmaceutical companies to take their medication. So those are things that can also be done in alliance with the pharmaceutical companies so that the pharmaceutical companies, once their medication in the outside space, they negotiate with the government makes sure that they have the lowest prices possible, and then they keep it at that rate. In France, for instance, they made sure that after they negotiate the prices do not go up. And so that is why the prices are lower in France at this time. So each country has their specific ways of cutting down on the cost for their citizens, but it has to be a collective effort. Of course, there's a need for public and private partnership. That is not happening in the UK right now, but it's because of the centralized health system that is working that we have low cost of medication in the UK.
Do you also believe that most of these healthcare challenges we are currently facing in Nigeria can be linked in some way to the Japa syndrome, because we have most of our medical practitioners leaving the country? Do you think that is one of the reasons why we have these challenges? And what can the government do in Nigeria here to ensure that the environment is better for medical practitioners to thrive?
Thank you for that question. I think it is a huge menace that we have not yet even fully gotten the dimensions of how many people have left and how many people are still living on a daily basis. Affecting medication in particular, I don't think the Japa syndrome has affected it because we have both internal and external factors affecting the pharmaceuticals in Nigeria. But concerning that question, the government has to do more to encourage the medical practice to thrive in Nigeria. We have to incentivize them by giving them access to research, by giving them better pay, by increasing their standard of living in Nigeria. Because by the time you compare how they live in Nigeria and the way they live outside the country, the difference is humongous. The system is better, the system works. So first of all, we need a health system that works. So if we don't have a health system that works, most people will not want to stay. If we don't have a health system that is funded, most people will not want to stay. If we don't have a health system in which health practitioners are appreciated and not overworked, most people will not want to stay. One will be surprised that people are coming to the United Kingdom where there are already many doctors and they keep saying that they still need more. That is because they have considered that their citizens are important and that the health of their citizens are important. We need to prioritize health in Nigeria. We need to prioritize the health of our citizens. And when we do that, then we are going to treat our health professionals better across board, both doctors and nurses and other allied health professionals, because they are all members of the team and they are all important.
Very well, very well. Now, what would you advise the medical practitioners here in Nigeria to do? Okay, this is a challenge we are faced with already, the hike in price of pharmaceutical drugs. What can they do differently to, somewhat, cope with this situation to ensure that people just don't keep dying because they can't afford medication?
I think that is a bit of a tough question. However, there are some things that can be done. One of them is that there can be private-public partnerships in which pharmaceuticals directly liaise with hospitals in which their medications are used. For instance, if there's a cancer center and we have people that are supplying chemotherapy, there is some agreement between them and those special centers in which the drugs are brought in at a subsidized rate and they are capped so that they do not exceed that rate for the patients, and the cap prevents it from going up while treatment is going on. So those are things that can be done in-house. The other thing that is very important is the fact of preventive medicine. We need to preach that a bit more. So if people do not get sick, they will not end up needing medication. So we need to all take responsibility for our health and take our health seriously. So that is very important. We need to preach health to the populace on a general basis, on the TV, on the radio. We need to let people know that they need to take their health seriously. They need to go for their blood pressure checks, their blood sugar checks, especially if they have a family history. They need to reduce stress. They need to reduce salt. We need to let them know that there are things that they can do to prevent falling ill. They need to keep the mosquitoes away, keep their environment clean. So all of this falls under the remit of public health, and every physician needs to be a public health physician these days. It's very important, especially in Nigeria where we lack a lot of medical personnel because most of them have left. So this is very important that we need to keep doing this. But from the hospital's point of view, we can have partnerships going on. But it would have been easier if there was a centralized system in the healthcare system.
Okay, a centralized system, you say. What are the practical steps? Because all of this can just be theoretical, saying all of this, but what are the practical steps, to actually bring all of this about? And one of the major reasons why we have this hike in price of pharmaceuticals, aside the inflation and everything, of course, inflation is affecting every commodity as we speak in Nigeria today. But one of the reasons is the fact that some of these pharmaceuticals are leaving, they are exiting the nation, and of course, the price of importation and all of that, contribute to this hike in price. What can we do better? What can the government do to get more, more pharmaceutical companies to come establish here in Nigeria?
Well, I'm not surprised some pharmaceuticals are leaving because lots of companies have left because of running costs that are excessive, and that they cannot cope with, because as I said, producing medication is a bit of a risk. You have to have the discovery of the medication, you have to have the clinical trials, sometimes they are failed drugs. All of those things cost money and resources. And so if you are trying to put all of those resources into producing your medication, and then you are in a country in which there is no power, there is no security, then there's a lot more at risk than just your medication. So those are some of the things that the government can do. The government can improve the security in the system. The government can create policies in which small and medium-term loans can be given to pharmaceutical companies so that they can start off and start producing medication. The government can encourage research in the drug research institutes. I'm sure we have drug research institutes in Nigeria. We need to encourage research so that indigenous medications are developed and we can treat our people with what we have on ground and not rely on everything that we have from the outside. And even if we want to have the kind of medication from the outside, we can produce our own generic ones, just the way they produce in India. And that will subsequently bring down the cost. But the government needs to give tax incentives, tax incentives to small and medium enterprises so that they can come into the country and so that the ones in the country can decide they want to go into pharmaceutical and it would thrive. Also improve security, deal with the rising rate of inflation. And those are some of the things that can be done.
All right, very well. In Nigeria today, we see so many pharmacists. People graduate from the pharmaceutical departments and the university every now and then, and all they do is basically set up pharmaceutical stores to sell drugs. What can be done about this? Because if you studied pharmacy, you should be able to bring about your own kind of medication or something, like, you know, to actually have companies that actually make drugs here in Nigeria, not just sell them. What can be done differently in the pharmaceutical space to ensure that we have more active pharmacists producing drugs so that we don't have to always import?
One of the things that can be suggested is that they come together and conglomerate so that they have more resources to pull together and then set up a pharmaceutical company together. As I said earlier, it is expensive to set up a pharmaceutical industry, and it comes with its own risk, especially when you are doing clinical trials and you're discovering what the properties of the medication are and all of those kind of things. So, like most people will do, you will take the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance is to sell drugs that have already been produced, that have already been tested. And so just to bring it to the consumers, which is fine and well. And there would always be people that would do that. But of course, if we want to encourage them to produce medication, we need to give them incentives. We need to have some tax reforms for them. We need to be able to encourage them to be able to get loans that they can pay off over a long time to set up industry. We need to have regulations in place that would support them. We need to have policies, even from the level of the Senate and the House of Assembly, that will support our indigenous pharmacists to produce their own medication. So those are some of the things we can do to encourage them to do that, to set up industry.
Okay, that would be very beautiful to see if we had, you know, companies really making drugs here in Nigeria. Now, in your own experience as a medical practitioner, you know, you actually said a bit about the traditional medicine, but people who actually go this way, you know, of course, we know that going the way of traditional medicine, there are pros and cons, you know, there are some kind of course, they are not easily measured, and so but there are some people who actually go for it and still, you know, get better. You know, wouldn't that be better than just sitting back and not doing anything medically, especially when you have a very severe medical challenge?
Well, it is debatable because some things are mild. You could have things like medication that can treat eczema. You boil some leaf, you can treat eczema. You boil something, you can treat malaria and things like that. But for other illnesses that are very serious, sometimes you can make them worse when you just combine different kinds of leaves together and you don't even know which leaves you're combining. All is from hearsay. So even though it has given some people some benefits, some respites, which is better than nothing at all, it is a risk. And sometimes the risk comes with side effects, comes with complications that the medical practice now ends up trying to manage the complications of. And so some medications, people take them, they lead to heart failure, they lead to kidney failure because their body is not able to break down the different things that are concocted together. So I'm not against it, but it needs to be regulated. We need to be able to know what quantities that we are mixing together. Herbal medicine is a real trade. And so I am not against it, but it needs to be better regulated so that we know exactly what we are doing. We are not just mixing leaves together. So if it's regulated and we have special people that have already been trained in that aspect, then it's welcome. We can even liaise with them and take insights from them, and they take insights from us. It's all about everybody knowing their limits and knowing what they can do and what they cannot do. So there's nothing wrong in trying it, but there are risks, and everybody needs to be aware of the risks before they go in that direction.
Very well, doctor. Now, someone said this is the worst time to fall sick in Nigeria. Now, let us talk about prevention. You know, prevention is better than cure. What can the government do or medical practitioners do to actually enlighten people on preventive measures so that you don't get sick and start looking for how to, you know, and going for all this very expensive medication? Why not just prevent it? What can be done to ensure that people prevent this outcome of sicknesses, you know, by all of this very, very severe sicknesses like hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, and all of that? What can be done to sensitize the people to ensure that this kind of illnesses are prevented?
Okay, so what can be done is health promotion, and health promotion involves talking to people about their health in different settings, whether in a local setting or via public settings, via the media, via any setting. It's very important that we're able to talk to people and let them know that these are the things they can do that is going to help them stay well. Some people would unfortunately still develop these chronic illnesses because some of them have risk factors. They have family factors that are preventing it. But apart from genetics, there are so many other ways we can prevent illness. We can stop excessive alcohol. We can stop smoking. We can reduce our weight. We can reduce salt. We can reduce stress. There's a lot of stress in the system, unfortunately. So those are things that we can do. We can eat a healthier diet. We can sleep better. So these are things that we can do. We can reduce noise pollution in the environment. We can reduce deaths in the environment and different kinds of vermin in the environment. So these are things that we can do to prevent illness. And these are things that should be publicized, that should be shouted from the market squares instead of people shouting in the market squares about how to increase libido. And that's the kind of thing you will hear in the market squares. We need to publish health promotion better and how to prevent illnesses.
Very well, doctor. Now, still about prevention, you know, what hacks? Because I know not every illness requires orthodox medicine, or, you know, for you to take drugs. There are some things you can just do and you get better. For instance, sometimes when I have very severe headache, I can take a lot of water and I just rest, and after a while I'm as good as new. So how can people know how to go about these things instead of depending, you know, always on orthodox medicine? Are there measures they can put in place and get better in due time without having to consult the pharmaceuticals?
Yes. Now, there are different people that can help in this regard. So sometimes there are basic things, like if you have pain, you would expect that, okay, take a paracetamol and you expect the pain to go. If the pain doesn't go, then you should be a bit more suspicious on what is causing the pain. If you have malaria, you know the symptoms, you can take malaria. You don't have to consult your doctor necessarily for that. But if the symptoms do not go, you need to consult your doctor. So those are some of the things that you can do. Drinking water for a headache does not work all the time because there are different types of headaches. But if you have a headache that comes with red flags, meaning like your worst headache ever, you're having a headache and vomiting, you're having a headache and having neck stiffness, having a headache and having a fever. So those are some of the more serious headaches. But of course, there are other people that just have what is called a migraine. They know the symptoms. They know that they need to stop eating a particular kind of food and the headache will go away. They need to stay in a dark room and the headache will go away. So there are different kinds of headaches for that, for instance. But some people just have a simple tension headache that is brought on by stress. And when they sleep and they get rehydrated, they feel better. So there are different things for different. I think in the time that we have the internet, we need to read more. We need to be more informed about our health. We need to be more informed because we all have to take responsibility for our health. That's very important. But I think we still need doctors and we still need pharmacists. Some things you can ask your pharmacist because they're also informed about how to treat minor illnesses. But it's good that we all know our limits. And when you need to see your doctor, you need to see your doctor.
Okay. Now, what role would you say technology, of course, we are in a technological age, what role can technological innovations, play in, mediating this inflation crisis as we have it in Nigeria today?
I don't think technology is going to do much to mediate the inflation crisis. I think the inflation crisis comes from the removal of subsidies and all of those other things and the prices of things in the markets. I don't think AI or technology is going to do very much in that regard, unfortunately. But of course, technology plays a huge part in production of medicines and in the healthcare industry. And there are a lot of technological advances that have made things better and easier for both patients and health personnel across the years, and they're still getting better.
Okay. So now, from your medical perspective, for someone who has asthma, for instance, who cannot afford to buy his drugs, or someone who has diabetes, who can't afford insulin, what would you advise the person to do currently, practically speaking now?
That's very difficult. That's very difficult to say. I would have to tell them to pull resources together to create funding to pay for their medication. The person that has asthma, for instance, can avoid the triggers for the asthma because asthma can have triggers. However, not all triggers can be avoided, like weather. But some people have exercise-induced asthma, for instance, so they might decide that they wouldn't exercise. Some people have, if it's triggered by the weather, you can't avoid the weather. But some are triggered by dust and other allergens, so they can do their best to avoid those allergens. It will be about avoidance. But in the case of having an asthmatic attack, they would need treatment immediately. And this is the area in which it might be a good thing to have some form of health insurance that can cover for basic things. So if one has health insurance like they have in the US and in some other countries that covers medication, then medication user. So that would be insurance that covers their medication.
Yeah, of course, that is a very laudable advice. Get insurance on your health so that at least when you are down, you can have the insurance company cover the cost of your medication. All right, thank you so very much to you, Dr. Temitokpe Ayedu, for your time on Market Insights this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Temitokpe Ayedu is also the founder and convener of the Link Family and the Find series. And she's also the author of the inspirational book titled The Yam Porridge Stories. You can find her on YouTube at Temitokpe Praising Child. On that note, we call it a wrap on the markets segment, that's the commodity market segment. When we return from this break, we'll be going straight into the currency market. Stay with us, please.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked to CBN, the stock exchange, and the lows of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the Outer Marina through Akpombo, early into the Adeniji-Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. Souk Enlightenment.
My name is Dr. Agility Obi.
My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi.
Well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News. Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you, no, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you, to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marse Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square. Souk Enlightenment.
My name is Dr. Agility Obi.
My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi.
Well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News. Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you, no, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you, to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
Welcome back. You're still watching Market Insight, and now we're moving straight into the currency market, talking about the official market as well as the parallel market, which is the black market. So yesterday, being the 23rd of January 2024, the US dollar was buying at 899 naira and selling at 900 naira, while the pounds was buying at 1,140 naira and selling at 1,141 naira. The euros was buying at 976 naira and selling at 1,141 naira. And all of this is at the official market as released by the CBN yesterday. Today, in the parallel market today, we see that the USD, that's the US dollar, is buying at 1,360 naira and selling at 1,365 naira, while the pounds is buying at 1,710 naira and selling at 1,725 naira. The euros also is buying at 1,445 naira and selling at 1,460 naira. So we can see from this report in the parallel market that the USD, has increased a little bit. It used to be, yesterday it was about 1,350 naira, and today it is buying at 1,360. So that's like a 10 naira difference. But the pounds as well as the euros have not really increased from the last time it was viewed. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We will be talking a little bit because on Forbes during this past few days, there was a report by Forbes. Forbes released the top 10 strongest currencies in the world. Yes, the top 10 currencies in the world. Now, while the US dollar is widely acknowledged as the most influential currency globally, and also holds dominant positions in the international trade, it might be surprising to learn that among the over 180 recognized traditional currencies considered legal tenders worldwide, the greenback does not rank as the strongest. Yes, the US dollar is not the strongest currency in the world. That's according to Forbes. Now, the strongest currency, the top 10 strongest currencies include Kuwait's dinar, which is about 3.25 US dollars. So one Kuwait dollar, is equal to 3.25 US dollars. And we also have the Bahraini dinar, which is equivalent to 2.65 US dollar. We also have the Omani Rial, which is approximately 2.60 US dollar. Then the Jordanian dinar goes for 1.41 US dollars. The British pounds, ranked 5th, is approximately 1.27 US dollars. And the Gibraltar pound is 1.27 US dollars. The Cayman Island dollar is 1.20 US dollars, while the Swiss franc, I beg your pardon, is 1.18 US dollars. The euros is 1.10 dollars, and then the 10th on this list is the US dollar. And that was quite interesting to note, and that was why I decided to share it on this show, so the worth of the US dollar compared to some other currencies in the world. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll wrap up the show. Stay with us.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged Festac 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Experts Troll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souk Enlightenment.
Welcome back. You're still watching Market Insight, and this is more like the summary of the show because we were able to discuss about the commodity market, talking about the impact of the high cost of pharmaceutical drugs on the Nigerian economy, and we were able to have this conversation with Dr. Temitokpe Ayedu, and she really gave us a whole lot of insight into this topic and talking about how Nigerians can cope even in this dire situation of the hiking price of pharmaceutical drugs, you know. And one of the key things I would take out of that conversation is that prevention is better than cure. Before you fall sick, try to protect yourself to prevent sicknesses generally. Of course, we know definitely at some point you'll fall sick, but at least you'll be able to minimize the frequency at which you fall sick, because the prices of these drugs are really exorbitant, and you don't want to be in that situation whereby you can't afford medication. So please protect yourselves. We love you, and we want you alive and well. That's the size of the show. Market Insight makes a return tomorrow, same time, same station. I'm Adesua Iromosele. See you again tomorrow. Hello and welcome to Market Insight. Yes, this is the show that gives you all the information you need about the commodity market as well as the currency market. I'm your host, Adesua Iromosele, and today we will be looking at something very crucial, because recently we've had some challenges in the global economic space, and today we'll be discussing the disruptions in the food supply chain due to the Red Sea unrest as we currently have it. Now, the Red Sea, once a bustling trade route, has become a point of tension due to several factors. The Yemeni rebel group, Houthis, has launched drone and missile attacks on ships in the Red Sea since December 2023. They claim this is in response to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to pressure Israel. These attacks, have brought about so many challenges, and one is the fact that several major shipping companies temporarily halted operations, and this has caused delays. And also, the ongoing threat of attack raised insurance costs and discourages some companies from using the route. Now, the attacks risks escalating between Houthi, Saudi Arabia, and other regions. And beyond the Houthi action, the Red Sea is witnessing a broader struggle for control and resources. Regional powers like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar are vying for influence in the Horn of Africa and the Middle East, and this is increasing instability. Unresolved conflicts between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia over the Nile River's usage adds another layer of tension. So we can see that this current situation is bringing about global trade disruptions, energy shock waves, regional escalation, and so many other major challenges. Now, to discuss this topic, we would be introducing our guest. Our guest today is Gospel Obele. He is an economist, and he'll be joining us virtually to talk in-depthly about this current challenge we have in the global space. Good morning to you, Gospel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So now let's, go right into it. What is your take on the current happenings in the global space, talking about the Red Sea unrest?
Well, we've seen that these narratives have been consistent. They're just evolving in different nuances, different ways. So you look at the Russian-Ukraine war, the Israel-Hamas war, the rise of geopolitical tensions. Those tensions have always existed. But we're now seeing that the rise of these tensions are now moving beyond just, in quote-unquote, wars or disputes or disagreements to severe trade tensions that are bordering heavily on supply chain. So you've seen how the Russian-Ukraine war has also evolved into impacting the supply of wheat, grain, and all of these flour and baking materials that are needed globally. So it's like the same situation we find with the Red Sea. And it's just speaks to that traction of global unrest that are evolving. So you're seeing more evolution from geopolitical tensions that are impacting directly on core consumption dynamics that are needed, or core raw materials in the global market. So what's going to happen is if this continues and there is no sort of like an amicable way to solve the problem, the unrest that we have, that may impact heavily on global commodity prices, especially when it comes to food commodity, and invariably as well impact on imported inflation from many countries, which again, in context to the cost of living, food and energy has been the core areas of impact or severe pain, for majority of people globally right now. So it has a lot of ripple effect if the unrest is not put to, if the unrest doesn't stop, or if some form of agreements are not being reached quick enough to ensure that supply chains will operate.
Now, Gospel, what specific commodities would you say would be greatly affected by this unrest?
Yeah, basically food commodities, and more importantly, raw material-based food commodities that would go into raw materials that go in as inputs, for semi-produced or finished goods. So if you think about it from that aspect, it can be a very, very broad basket of raw material food commodities. And this can also be nuanced in many ways. Knowing fully well that one of the things globalization did for us was to help nations evolve in their area of strength. So you have Apple having their HQ in the US, California, in Silicon Valley. You also have a situation where the manufacturing HQ for the same Apple is in China. All right. So you have also, car manufacturers having their HQ in Japan, but the assembling plant is in Vietnam and all that. So the globalization dynamics has evolved such a way that you have specialized industries and factories for global commodities spread across different countries. So what that means is if this raw material block of this food supply and this unrest and all the dynamics is currently happening in the Red Sea, if it's not being dealt with, it will impact on production dynamics across different markets easily. And once that's happening, then commodity prices will pick up in terms of shortages, rise in these prices, and that would impact on global supply of raw materials being made available for processed or semi-finished goods. So it sort of has an immediate impact and a ripple effect as well on global consumption. And once global consumption drops or the price to consume increases, that's going to impact on global growth further down the line and maybe even drive the world to recession more faster.
Now, bringing it back home to Nigeria, for a country like ours that is already grappling with so many challenges when it comes to inflation in food, in food commodities. Now, how would this, challenge now, this unrest, in the Red Sea, how would it impact our present state, talking about food inflation? Would food prices, further, increase, due to the cost of importation and all of that? What are Nigerians to expect in this time?
Well, first and foremost, to state that we already have a food security challenge locally. We aren't producing in the right quality and quantity that is required to meet our population. And aside that as well, our population have a very strong taste and preference for foreign goods. And that's also because to a very large extent, the bulk of experiences people have consuming made in Nigeria haven't been pleasing. And added to that is the fact that you have a direct and indirect impact when you look at it from the context of the impact of the Red Sea on the rest on the local economy. So we already have imported inflation as one of the major strong inputs to food inflation in Nigeria, because most of what we used to produce, bread, sugar, and all that, are being imported. And the dynamics of those rising prices in recent times have been as a result of the geopolitical tensions within the Russian-Ukraine war, climate change, Israel-Hamas, and all those things. Now, if you now look in context again to the Red Sea unrest, that would further deepen the nuances, either as direct raw material supply into the Nigerian economy, being short of expectation, and that would also impact on manufacturers having a difficult time to access those raw materials. And because those raw materials are now difficult to access, it becomes more pricey to access the ones that are readily available. Right? A simple law of economics: when the demand for an item is high and the supply is reduced or short over a period of time, it means that the price of that item would rise. All right, so producers or manufacturers are going to have a difficult time accessing this raw material basket as a result of the Red Sea unrest, if it triples down to that. Secondly, if it doesn't happen from that direct value chain, it could happen indirectly. Again, because Nigeria is not a producer of quote unquote anything significant in the local, regional, and global space. It means that some of the things we need to get into final production, we need to import them as semi-finished goods. And importing goods as semi-finished goods means that many countries or different factories or different institutions in different countries that have already taken the impact of the unrest, all right, they've already factored the impact of that into their price, into their supply chain, and all that, would also transfer those costs on the semi-finished items because they need to make profit, they need to be in business. And when you transfer that to to the semi-finished items, and businesses in Nigeria get to also import those semi-finished items, it will sort of mean that we are already importing the inflation. So minus the fact that some stakeholders may have issues accessing the raw materials directly, other stakeholders are going to have more issues importing the semi-finished product that will help them finish the production line or the production process. So which technically means that either way, you're importing inflation. All right, and imported inflation on food is the scariest of the all inflation penetration blocks because it tells a very vivid picture as to why we're struggling and why we're not where we plan to be or we should be when it comes to food security in Nigeria. So which technically means that it will increase the price of food in the Nigerian market because the average manufacturer would also push the price further down the line. The consumer gets to bear the brunt of any increase globally, regionally, and even locally. And they would, of course, get to spend more share of their income, which they're already doing at the moment, to finance their day-to-day feeding and day-to-day shelter or day-to-day basic needs, which again would be very, very bad for the Nigerian economy, considering the way the economy is currently struggling now.
All right. Now, food inflation, affects everybody of course, everyone from different social economic classes, but some more than others, right? Now, what interventions can be put in place to, to basically, help those who are in their need? Because food is basic, so anyone who can feed at least once or twice a day, that is a very big problem. What can be done to intervene in this situation, especially here in Nigeria?
Well, I think that we need a case of both basic interventions as well as sector-based interventions. So basic interventions will be that rather than giving out palliatives and all of that, government may probably have to step in somewhere on the value chain to help producers secure produce, at a discounted rate, so that they can sort of manage the pricing impact as it's being transferred on the consumer. One end as well would be to think of how do we encourage local supply, because the local supply is not the issue. It's most times the bottlenecks to moving food from farm to market. So the price of yam in Benue is ridiculously cheap and is ridiculously available en masse to feed Nigerians. But the cost of moving...
I'm okay.
My name is Raymond Bola Brown. Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News. If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souk News. Thank you very much.